about melatonin and leptin. So I thought this was really interesting. One of the main actions of melatonin is to participate in the circadian organization of metabolic functions and their association to the circadian behavioral cycles regulating food intake and energy expenditure. Moreover, melatonin drives the daily rhythmicity of plasma leptin and modulates the glycemic homeostasis according to the photoperiod-dependent metabolic state. What does this mean? It means when your melatonin comes out in an appropriate manner at night, right, when it's dark, your melatonin starts to come out. When you have good levels of melatonin, you will have healthy, appropriate levels of leptin. And you know that melatonin plays a big role with glucose and insulin utilization. So again, regulating food intake and energy expenditure. There's so much research on insomnia or a poor night's sleep and its effect on blood sugar and its effect on insulin, its effect on weight gain. And it goes hand in hand with leptin, which of course then goes hand in hand with estrogen as well. So what can you do to address leptin? Quality sleep is number one. Wear your blue light blocking glasses at night. Don't be very stimulated at night. Make sure that if you have disordered breathing, sleep apnea, you're a mouth breather, you're getting that evaluated because all of that will affect your melatonin output. You want proper breathing, right? So make sure that you are not a mouth breather in the day. Make sure your sinuses and your nose aren't constantly clogged, so you constantly mouth breathe. Or you're not a shallow breather. You're always in fight or flight, which can be a big problem. Regular exercise, your HIIT, your weight training, really good for leptin. Intermittent fasting and fasting mimicking diets have been shown to be really helpful at decreasing leptin. Minimizing fructose and sucrose, reducing triglycerides, reducing CRP and inflammation. And again, these are very broad suggestions. I understand that, but obviously, I mean, we could do an entire webinar on just inflammation, right? Ways to, what causes inflammation, ways to reduce inflammation, and all inflammation is the causes could be very, very different. I'm going to address, inflammation from a food maybe differently. I'm going to address inflammation from, mold, exposure. Curcumin though, turmeric, right? Curcumin, very anti-inflammatory. It's been shown to be helpful for leptin. Checking zinc levels. It might be correlated and adding, so there's a study that added alpha lipoic acid and zinc together and found it to be helpful. Acupuncture. Obviously great for inflammation, great for so many things, acupuncture is, but in the end result is that it can be really helpful for detoxification, estrogen, leptin, inflammation, what have you. There was a study that looked at metformin or glucophage, and they added in just 120 milligrams of ginkgo, and it performed better than the metformin alone in reducing leptin levels, which was really interesting to me. And then lastly, we have chitosan, which is a binder, often used as a binder. And that it was shown to be helpful for addressing leptin. Now, again, what I really want to encourage, because I know a lot of people get very excited when we talk about leptin and fat loss, and they will run out and they'll buy curcumin and zinc and alpha lipoic acid and ginkgo and chitosan, and they will take all the supplements, but they won't address the cause. You have to address the cause as to why the leptin is not getting to the hypothalamus. Is it a blood-brain barrier issue? Is it a receptor blockade issue? Is it CRP? Is it inflammation? Is it breathing? Is it sleep? And I can assure you all the curcumin in the world, all the ginkgo in the world is not going to stop your sleep apnea, and it's not going to improve your quality of sleep if you are a night owl or, get your second wind at night, or you've got blood sugar issues, what have you. So you definitely need to address the cause, work on these things with your patients, and use these tools as Band-Aids to help, further things along. And then if you have questions or interested about leptin, there is research there that you can look up. So what else helps reduce risks and symptoms? We're going to talk about these two stopgaps, quinone reductase and GST. So let's talk about NQO1, NADPH, quinone reductase, GST, glutathione S transferase. So N-acetylcysteine. N-acetylcysteine is a phase 1-ish, phase 2 metabolism supporter. It prevents damage to DNA by inhibiting the formation of the quinone and reacting with them. It can also reduce the semiquinone back to the 4OH. So what do I mean by that? Let me go back. I should have put the graph in here too to make it easier. So if we look at, let's see here, GST right in the middle. So GST has an arrow a green arrow to the right that says glutathione plus quinone is excreted, smiley face. GST also has an arrow to the left that goes back to the 4-OH. That's where it's reducing this semi-quinone and quinone form back to the 4-OH. So hopefully your COMT will upregulate and get it out of your system. Oops, got too excited. So again, NAC inhibited adduct formation by 60% or more when reacting with quinone itself in vitro studies. We know hydrolysis of NAC in the liver and gut forms cysteine, and that's what helps make glutathione. Glutathione was ultimately what we're going for. So NAC for the win. In this particular study by Dr. Zaid and Rogan, towards this goal in a preliminary in vitro study, we have tested several antioxidants. So N-acetylcysteine, glutathione, and cysteine by itself, melatonin, resveratrol, and reduced lipoic acid. N-acetylcysteine was found to be one of the best inhibitors of formation of depurinating adducts in reaction mixtures containing the quinone or activated enzyme, the 4-OH, and DNA. Now, interestingly enough, I got to spend a couple hours with Dr. Zaid and Rogan in 2019, and I asked her, I said, what do you take every day? And she said, I take N-acetylcysteine. Now, she is obviously a PhD researcher. She is not in the integrative, natural, holistic, functional field at all. That's not her background or training. Breast cancer research is her interest. So she was not familiar with taking glutathione itself. She was not familiar, or she didn't take, I get asked this, liposomal, right? I said, what about liposomal glutathione? She goes, I don't know, Carrie. We're not studying that. We're studying N-acetylcysteine. So she herself takes N-acetylcysteine every day. Dr. Zaid, however, at the time said he did not. He was hit or miss. I guess he wasn't as concerned as she was. So I found that really interesting. But with N-acetylcysteine in this study of theirs, basically what they found, it's highlighted in red at the bottom, the depuring adduct levels were reduced by 46% and 37% with N-acetyl present at half the concentration. So when it was a half concentration of N-acetylcysteine to the 4-OH. Yet when they did a one-to-one, levels were reduced 86%, 85%. Yep, I fully realized these were done in cells in a petri dish, but it's just to give you an idea of how powerful that maybe these could be in the human body and why we suggest N-acetylcysteine often. This is the graphic from the study, and I just made it really easy. So you can see this is the adduct formation. The bars up are adduct formation. So no N-acetylcysteine. There were a lot of adduct formation, and when they gave lots of N-acetylcysteine, or a 1-to-1 ratio, then the bar shrunk way down for adduct formation. And so again, these are cells in a petri dish, and they just dropped N-acetylcysteine on it. So it's not like they opened up a supplement of N-acetylcysteine and I could give you milligram doses. It's not how it works in a cell study. So how easy is it to make glutathione from N-acetylcysteine? The reason I brought this up is I was talking to Dr. Ben Lynch about this, and he said, well, cysteine can make more things than just glutathione. So I have this graphic in here thanks to Dr. Ben Lynch. I have permission from him. It's coming out in his new strategy and report. And yep, some of you are probably completely geeking out over this because I did. So let's look at cysteine, which is at the top, circled in red. There's cysteine. Cysteine has a few options. Unfortunately, it can become cysteine. Cysteine is a reactive nitrogen species, so we don't want that. So if we go back to cysteine, it can go to the left, and that can go down your sulfur pathway. So it can become a sulfite, which a lot of you are reactive to sulfites if you don't have a healthy SUOX. SUOX is what converts your sulfite to sulfate. And so N-acetylcysteine could give you a sulfite reaction in some people. Go back to cysteine. Obviously, our goal is to go straight down to glutathione. That's what we're hoping for when we give cysteine. Now, I will often get asked a lot, do I have a preference? I know, I believe Dr. Lynch's preference is just to take glutathione. I go back and forth. Personally, I'll do glutathione till it runs out, and then I have N-acetylcysteine. I'm like, oh, I have N-acetylcysteine, and then I'll take that. So I just hope and trust my body will figure out what to do. But how does it figure out what to do? Can't I just give straight glutathione all the time? You can, but remember, it takes a lot to recycle glutathione, and there are a lot of cofactors.